And welcome back, welcome back. Hey, 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 this is Dr. Dwain Woode, and we are at the end, maybe, of another fast. I am now 76 hours into this week's fast, and I am so excited that you have come to join me as we talk about this amazing tool of fasting. How do we prepare for a fast? How do we get through the fast and what's going on in our bodies? And how do we break a fast successfully? I'm so glad that you are here. If you are joining us from around the country, around the world, I want you to drop where you're joining us from in the comments, because I want to make sure that we give you a shout out. Those of you who are out of the country, those of you who are here in the United States, we welcome you. Whatever platform you're joining us from, whether that's LinkedIn or it is Twitch or Instagram or TikTok, or if you are on Facebook and of course here on YouTube, welcome, welcome, welcome. And a special shout out to our Accelerator members. Thank you for coming and hanging out with us. And then I want to say a quick shout out to our folks who are in Atlanta, Georgia, those from the Atlanta Berean Church there in Atlanta, Georgia. Welcome to our show. Those of you who are joining us from Nashville, Riverside Chapel, and those who are joining us from Louisville, the Magazine Street Temple Church there in Louisville, Kentucky. And if you are joining us because you saw our content at a health fair or your church or your community center or your doctor's office, or someone invited you, saw it on your newsletter, thank you for coming through and hanging out with us. We are so happy and excited that you are here right now. Go ahead, if you're new to me, go ahead and put new in the comments, because we want to welcome you with a hand clap and some music. And let you know that we are excited to have you with us. If you have questions, go ahead and drop those in the comments so that we can get to those as we move through the rest of our show. I've got some good stuff that we're going to take a look at. I've got my monitors off to the side. And right below me, this is my Dexcom Clarity Report that we'll take a look at here in just a little while. If you've been following us, you know that I've been excited over the last couple of weeks as we have launched our MOVE campaign. This is giving you a space for improving your metabolism by moving, right? So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can just come and plug in and join us for that. Let's go ahead and let's take a look and let's listen to that promo right now. Welcome to MOVE, Metabolic Optimization via Exercise. This isn't just about workouts. It's about moving your body, moving your habits, and moving your life forward. Each episode builds consistency, strength, and resilience step by step. I'm Dr. Dwain Woode, and together we're writing the story of health, transformation, and limitless living. This is MOVE. Let's get started. All right. So I'm very excited about that. We did a 100-day walk to consistency as our series. Then we got into strength training. We did 100 days. So between those two series, we're 220 or 230 days. And so we're launching the MOVE campaign now. And this gives you a ready-made place where you can come and you can exercise. So whether you're rowing, whether you're swimming, whether you are strength training, you're jogging, you're walking, whatever you're doing, this is the place you can do it. So we may be doing a different exercise than you're doing, but that's okay. We're all moving together. Metabolic optimization via exercise. Okay? All right. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at what's been going on with my blood sugars as we get into our show. And this right here is my Freestyle Libre. And you'll see right now my blood sugar is 54. Right? So don't let that alarm you, because we are fasting. So 54 right there. If you look down at this graph, you'll see that for most of the day, for at least the last 12 hours, I have been below 70 with my blood sugars. We'll put our finger there in a minute and kind of scroll through so you get to see some of those actual numbers. And so this is kind of the picture that you will get if you are fasting, particularly if you're doing extended fasting. I always say if you are on medication for diabetes, you want to make sure that you're talking to your doctor and you guys are adjusting that for your particular situation. So let's go ahead. I'm going to put my finger right across that now. And right here, you're looking at this graph. You see those numbers. For most of the last 12 hours, we've been below 70, 70, 70, 70, got up to 62 right there. And then, yeah, 50s, 50s, low 50s, mid 50s, until we are where we are right now. I love the Freestyle Libre because I can go back and I can look at different reports. I can look at my time and range, and we're looking at these numbers right here. You'll see I'm in range 68% of the time over the last 7 days, and 32% are actually low. So combining those two, I'm in normal or low over the course of the last 7 days. If I look at the last 14 days now, 79% in range, and 30 days, 78%, and of course 90 days, 83% of the time. And all of those lows that you're seeing usually are happening when I'm fasting, okay? So that's usually the time when that's going on. And then let's take a look at what my average blood sugars have been doing, and we're looking at this line right here. So 85 for the last 7 days, 86 for the last 14 days, 85 for the last 30 days, and for 90 days, 88. I love this also because right here you see the breakdown of what's been going on with my blood sugars over the different times of the day, and you see there it's ranging anywhere from 85 up to 93 is the highest that I see there, okay? Awesome. And let's go ahead and let's take a look at what's been going on with my Dexcom. Let's see. That's not the one we want to see yet. So right here. So 72 is what my Dexcom says that my blood sugar is right now. And this one, I'm going to look at the 24-hour period, starting right up in here and kind of scrolling through. See, we've been in the 80s, 80s, 80s. 80s and 90s, 80s and 90s for most of the day. Look at that, yeah? So we love that. We love what we're seeing there. So now let's go ahead and let's see what's been going on with my blood sugars as my monitors are saying. So here's my Keto Mojo, and here is my Contour. And let's go ahead and we need to get a strip for the Contour. We need a glucose strip for the Keto Mojo, a ketone strip for the Keto Mojo, and of course we're going to grab a couple of lancets so we can get those finger sticks, okay? All right, so first let's get the Contour out. We'll get that in. And what do you think? By the way, go ahead and start dropping in the comments. What do you think my ketones are going to be? So we're 76 hours into this week's fast. Go ahead and open this one up. And I've got some news that I'm going to share with you here in just a minute. So let's go ahead and drop that in. So that's the blood sugar strip for the Keto Mojo. Here's the one for the ketones. I'm going to open that up and just have that off to the side, and just grab one of these lancets. As you know, I don't use a lancing device. I just there it is. Grab that. Grab a finger, and boom, boom, boom. All right, and let's see. Yep, that was a pretty brisk drop. Get that started, and I'm going to keep that going so we can get one drop for the Contour, and then I'll need to keep this so I can get another drop for the Keto Mojo. All right, so 50 is what the Keto Mojo says. 51 is what the Contour says. Right there, you see the Dexcom says that it is 72. And then let's go back over here, and the Freestyle says 54. So Contour, Keto Mojo, and Freestyle are pretty close to each other. The odd man out right there is the Dexcom. And let's go ahead and move over to the strip so that this drop doesn't dry. And we have to do another poke. So let's go ahead and get that started. All right. And here we are. And I see some people starting to put their guesses already in the comments. And so 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And And we are 2.8. Look at that, y'all. 2.8 is what the Keto Mojo says. And let's go ahead and let's get over to this guy and let's go ahead and sync so we can pull that data into our app. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So ketones are very important in this process. When we talk about ketones, understand that ketones are breakdown products from fat burning. And so when we look at ketones, and we're looking at these numbers right here, right? So right about there, and you see that number that's in the big circle, that's my glucose ketone index. My blood sugar is 50, and then my ketones are 2.8. So ketones that are less than 0.5 are considered normal. 0.5 to 1.5 considered nutritional ketosis, and then above 1.5 considered therapeutic ketosis. So if you are on a ketogenic diet, if you are on a fasting mimicking diet, if you are fasting with the intention of improving metabolism, getting into ketosis, so you want ketones to be 0.5 or higher, right? So mine right now are 2.8. I think that, 2.8 is what they are. So we want those. Now, let's talk through that a little bit. So your ketones are coming from the breakdown of fat. In order for ketones to come out, your blood sugar has to be at a point where the insulin level goes down. Because remember, insulin and ketones can't coexist for long together. When insulin goes up, ketones go down. When insulin goes down, ketones go up. And we'll talk about that here in just a little bit as we get into our discussion for the show. But when I'm looking at these numbers, I get excited because that means when my blood sugar is low, well, my body has to find sugar or find energy somewhere. So it goes to fat cells and it begins breaking those down. And so the ketones go up. Okay? So that's there. Now, the GKI is a ratio of the glucose to ketones. And if you're dividing that right now, you're like, wait a minute, 50 divided by 2.8 is not 0.9. And let's go ahead and let's talk about that. Let me grab my calculator for this one, because it is a ratio. So my blood sugar is 50. I've got to convert that to international units, and I do that by dividing by 18. And then now I take this number and I divide it by the 2.8 that we saw, and that gives me the 0.9 that we had in that circle. Okay, so if you see that number, don't let that confuse you. If you're tracking this, if you're tracking yours, and you don't have a device that does it for you, you can go online. There are apps that are on there. You just put your ketones and you put your glucose in, and it'll give you the number. So we want the GKI to be as low as possible. We want the glucose to be low normal, and we want the ketones to be high. So let's look at the graph that corresponds to this. And what you'll see is, let's go back here. So the tan line that you're seeing, those are my blood sugars. And the dashed turquoise line, those are ketones. So as the blood sugars were high, right? So blood sugars were high right there. Ketones were low. So blood sugar there was 99. Ketones were low at 0. As the blood sugars came down, 72, then my ketones began going up. And as the blood sugars continued to drop, my ketones continued to go up. And then when the blood sugars drop to where it is now, then my ketones continue to get higher. Okay? And you'll see that there. So once again, ketones and blood sugars, right, go in the opposite direction. Not because of the blood sugar, but because of the insulin that has to come out if the blood sugar is high. Okay, so that's what you're seeing there. Now let's go ahead and let's hop over and let's take a look at what's been going on with my blood sugars according to my reports over the last several days. And for this, I want to, let's do this one so we can see a little better. Okay, so here is my average blood sugar over the last 14 days, 120. And we tell people usually we want their blood sugar to be between 100 and 120. I'm in target 98% of the time, target being anywhere from 70 to 180, and my glucose management indicator, which is a surrogate, if you will, for the A1C. Remember, A1C is that marker that we use over of 90 days to see what's been going on with blood sugars. My GMI would be 6.2. And so it correlates. I would expect if I got A1C at this point, it would approximate a 6.2. We did a show where we went back and we looked at my personal numbers as I saw my doctor. Go back and you'll see the correlation between A1C and what my monitors were telling me at the time, okay? And then now if I look at the 90-day average for this, you see over the last 90 days, my average blood sugar is 117, with my time in range being 98, and my glucose management indicator, once again, being a 6.1. Now, here is, I want to do this because I want you to see what has been going on with my blood sugars over the course of the entire fast. Now, if you've not done so yet, if you go to the episode that we did leading into this fast, you'll see what I ate, and then you'll be able to track my blood sugar and see what those numbers are and see if they were what you're expecting. That's one thing I want you to do. Go ahead and watch that episode, then look at these numbers and drop in the comments whether is that what you expected or the numbers were different than you expected based on what I ate. All right, so let's go back and we're going to start when I fasted. When I started the fast 76 hours ago, which is right in here. All right, so we started our fast right about there, and our blood sugar was 129. And let's take a look to see what was going on after that. So 129, we got up to 130, 140, 141, fluctuating over the next several hours. Now we're about, 7 hours away from the fast and moving into the rest of the evening after that fast started. And we started that afternoon. And notice we went up and then we started coming back down. And then into the next morning in the low 100s, spiking up a little bit to 119, 120s, but staying relatively stable over the next. And then right here is where we're at. We're right at about 24 hours into the fast. So 105. So we've started in the 120s down to 105 and then going. And so here we are when we did our show at 33 hours or thereabouts, down into the 90s. Continuing to go into the next morning, 90s, 80s. As I mentioned on the show, this, where it dipped down to the 50s, was probably not a real number. It probably just got disconnected, because notice that we were at 80s, we dropped down to the 50s, and went right back up to 99. So that doesn't usually happen that way. And so now look at this. The blood sugars over the course of the time they're fluctuating right around 100. And so here we are now, 48 hours after we started that fast. We started in the 120s, we got down to low 100s, and then now 87, right? As we continued into that fast, and look at those numbers straddling right about 70s, 80s, got into the 70s a little bit, but basically staying into the 80s, and then coming into this morning as we continue the fast, 80s, 80s, 80s. And this is according to the Dexcom, and as you know, the Dexcom is a little higher than the Freestyle. So 80s, 80s, 80s into where we are approaching right now. And so right here, we were 72 hours into the fast, into the blood sugars in the 80s. And then now, as we are 76 hours later, blood sugar is 70. And so you're asking a very important question right now. And the question is, hey, wait a minute. If you've not eaten for 76 hours, why isn't your blood sugar much lower? Why isn't it zero? I get that question a lot. And so remember, your body has the ability to take fat and convert it to sugar. There's the triglycerides, and you've heard that phrase. And so the body breaks that apart, and you get two components from it. You get 3 fatty acids, and those go off to create ketones. And then you get something called glycerol, right? So glycerol, glycogen, glucose, right? So that glycerol now goes on to become sugar. And that's why, even though you haven't eaten for a long time, you can still have blood sugars in 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. And if your blood sugar starts out high when you start fasting, and you've not fasted long enough, those blood sugars can stay in the 200s to 300s, okay? All right, so that's a good one. And the next thing I want to do right here is I want to talk about those ketones. Remember, the ketones that are being used are coming from fat cells. And so let's take a look at one of the things that we've been tracking, and that is my weight. And let's take a look here. And so going back to our weight graph, our weight trends, let's see, here we are. So, and so in this app I have, we've been tracking since I was 260 pounds, but my heaviest was 287 pounds. And so we've been tracking that over the course. I don't have that recorded in this app. It's in a different app. But notice that the trend has been in a downward spiral, right, which we like. And the reason I like to show this is that often people expect that number to go continually down all the time without any fluctuations. But it will fluctuate. Now, over the course of our metabolic improvement, we've done different types of fasting. We did intermittent fasting, 1 meal a day fasting, alternate day fasting. But the biggest drop that you see there is once we started doing some of the extended fasting. And what I'm excited about is, so a little over a year ago, I believe it was, or a couple of years ago, we hit 100 pounds down from our highest. And so we're just a few pounds away from 110 pounds at 177. So we're 179 right now. One of the things I love about what we do when we're tracking is we're not only just tracking the weight, and I want to make that point to you, that we're not just tracking weight, but we're tracking other components, because if we get those working, then the weight also is improving. And one of the reasons I love this app, and this is called Fit Index, there's no association with me and them other than I use their app and I use their scale, is that when you get on the scale, then it gives you lots of different pieces of information. And some of the pieces of information that we use is, body fat, hydration level, it looks at subcutaneous fat, bone mass, it looks at skeletal muscle, so all of those different things. And so for me, this has been kind of a game, and I've talked to you guys about this in the past. The game I play is, how can I get all of those numbers? Because when I started, all those numbers were like in the, let me see, what was the color? Yeah, they were all up here in the red. You see the right part of that? All of those were in the red. And so as we've done different things, I have been looking at those numbers, and the game I've been playing is, how can I get them all into the green? And usually green is right where we want. There are a couple that are still left right there that are in amber, right? But they came from the red, and so they're getting closer and closer and closer. And so the reason I point this out is that often we get fixated on the weight that scale is telling us. But if you do some of the other things, if you're looking at making sure you're hydrated, making sure you are keeping your lean muscle mass good, right? Strength, strategy, and mindset. So exercising. If you're paying attention to those, and you're paying attention to the things that we're talking here about, then you will see those changes happening in the weight as well. Okay? So I'll make a point about that here in just a minute, but I just wanted to make that point to you, that it is super, super important that we're not just fixated on the weight. The weight is a function of the other improvements that you're getting in your health. All right, so having said that, let's go ahead and let's say hi to some of our community members. I see you guys out there. But I did want to spend some time going through that. And so let's see. So Jiyon, what's up? Jiyon says, hey, Doctor and LLG, thank you for coming through. And Jiyon was guessing at 2.3, Jiyon. And you saw we were, what were we? Was it 2.8? I think that's what it was. Yeah, 2.8. Colin Hoppy, what's up, man? Hey, y'all. This is a good friend of mine. This is one of the guys I tell you when I travel and I go away. This is one of the guys that goes with us. Hey, Colin, thank you for coming through, man. So hi, Colin from Jiyon. Hello, Dr. Woode, Jiyon, Colin, and LLG. Thank you for coming through. Hi, sis from Jiyon to Cornelia. Hi, sis. Here it's 8 a.m. Saturday. So Jiyon, you're ahead of us, right? So thank you for coming through and hanging out with us. Cornelia says, yay, I'm so glad you made it. Wow, doctor, 76 hours, great. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, sis. 76 hours is awesome. 2.3. So Cornelia, was that your guess for me, or was that where you are? Gion says amazing. I just guessed the same as you. Okay, so you're guessing. Wow, amazing number. Yes, it is 2.8. Yeah, love that number. Let's see. Since we are about the same ketone number, yes, yes, we did. We were close. That's right. Okay, so Cornelia was guessing at my ketones. Steve, what's up, Steve? Steve said, "Hello, friends." Well, I'm not really. I thought I was 2.0 at first, but it was 2.8. Oh, okay. Hey, Steve from Cornelia. Hey, Steve from Gion. Yes, yes, yes. So excited. So, Steve, what were your ketones? I know Steve always has ketones that are above 0.5. So we love to see that. So let's go ahead and let's have our conversation. We're going to talk about fasting. And I've got something I'm gonna tell you here in just a little bit. So right now I'm 76 hours into this week's fast, and I'm so excited about that. Let's see, where do I want to go? Give me just a second here, y'all. All right, here we are. And so always excited when I am fasting. When I get into a fast or when I'm approaching a fast, I actually get excited. And people say, "You get excited? Why?" I say, because I love getting into the fast. The fast really helps me in so many ways, metabolically, and helps me with a lot of what I do, what I'm trying to correct in terms of my health. So let's go ahead and let's take a look as we get into that discussion. And I'm going to do something here really quickly. Okay, here we are. All right. So we are fasting. So one of the first things to talk about when we talk about fasting is why fast. What is the reason for fasting? And I couch this in this idea of fasting being a tool. So we're using fasting as a tool. Well, if we're using a tool, what do we use tools for? We use tools for fixing problems, to help us with different things that are going on. For example, a hammer. A hammer is used to drive a nail. It's used, depending on the type of hammer. We're talking about simple hammer now, right? So I got a nail that needs to go into some wood, and I take a hammer and I use it. It is a tool. Now I can use other things. Like I can go and get a rock and do it, right? I can go and I can get a pot and do it. I can go and I can get other things that I can use to do that, but they don't work quite as well. And so I use the tool that's appropriate for what I'm doing and for what I need. And so fasting is a tool. So what is the tool fixing? The tool in this case, fasting, is fixing dysfunctional metabolism. We're not just fasting to fast. We're not just fasting because it's a trend. We're not just fasting because we don't like to eat, because we actually like to eat quite a bit, right? But we're fasting because fasting has a unique and specific way of improving metabolism. When we talk about metabolism, remember that is the process that the body uses to take food and convert it to energy in our body. And so anytime there's dysfunction along the pathway of getting that food into energy, then we can have dysfunctions. So whether it's that the food itself has a problem, processing and so forth, and there's a whole other conversation, Or when we eat the food, our body behaves in a way that's not expected. Or somehow once we eat the food creates some dysfunction in our system, allergies, inflammation, and so forth. Or once my body's processing the food, then for some reason it's unable to do that effectively, insulin resistance, right? So we can go along the entire pathway of the metabolism, right, the conversion of food, and we can begin placing dysfunction along that pathway. And anytime there's dysfunction along the pathway, we end up with diseases or disorders. If you think back to our history, for a long time, our history was that people got sick, people became ill, people passed away because of trauma or because of infection. We didn't know how to treat certain illnesses, and that's what people passed away from. Flash forward now to our modern era, and people are passing away, people are getting dysfunction, people are having disorders, people are having diseases because what we call lifestyle diseases. And lifestyle diseases have a direct correlation to metabolism. And underlying all of the dysfunctional metabolism, the most common things that we see, the largest culprit of that is hyperinsulinemia. That is, our body produces too much insulin, or the insulin doesn't function well. And here specifically, we're talking about type 2 diabetics or people who are have some metabolic dysfunction. So we're talking about high blood pressure, high cholesterol, fatty liver, obesity, metabolic syndrome, high cholesterol. Yes, you can go, and I can keep going along that pathway. So all of those are dysfunctions in our metabolism. They can stem from hyperinsulinemia. And so fasting is positioned in a unique way to help reduce those dysfunctions and to help us get better. So this is not simply a diabetes-related thing, because people who are not diabetic, who are pre-diabetic, or people who are not diabetic or pre-diabetic who have hyperinsulinemia can have heart attacks, strokes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, they can be obese, they can have fatty liver, right? So all of those things. Now we tend to talk about those when it comes to diabetics, but I know that some of you are out there and you don't have diabetes. You've not been told you're pre-diabetes, but you're overweight, you have high blood pressure, you may have had a heart attack, you may have had a stroke. How come? Right? So that's the question. So it's not just a diabetes related issue. It's not just a pre-diabetes related issue. It is a dysfunction along the metabolic pathway. And so fasting is a tool that we can use to help improve that, because fasting improves insulin sensitivity. Fasting, when we do it, reducing insulin. When we are fasting, we're decreasing intake. We're getting our bodies to use up the glycogen that's in our liver. That glycogen, once it's gone, the body then turns to fat cells. So now our weight goes down. When it turns to fat cells, we get ketones. So our appetite gets suppressed, and we can go down that pathway. All of that happens as a consequence of fasting. So why do we fast? That's the reason right there. That's why we fast. And so when we fast, we want to know, what do we need to know? If we're going to use a tool, let's use the tool appropriately. If we're going to use a tool, let's talk about when we should use the tool and what are the benefits that we're going to get from the tool. Okay? And so this is where we are now. We're talking about fasting. What do we need to know? And when I talk about fasting, I divide fasting into 3 different components. How do we prepare for the fast? How do we get through the fast successfully? And what is going on in our bodies? And how do we break that fast or end the fast appropriately? So how to get ready. And get ready, we can spend the entire year talking every single day about how to prepare for the fast, and we still would not end the discussion. That is not to say that the preparation is that complicated. That really is to say that there's so much that we can learn, so much that we can get ready for, so much that we can prepare, that we can talk about it forever. But simply preparation for fasting, we have to understand, number one is that we're not just not eating. Fasting is not just about not eating. We sometimes will think that that's what it is about, but that's not what fasting does for us. Fasting has the ability to regulate so much in our bodies, regulate so much in our emotions, regulate so much in our mindset, help us to deal with our life in general. And we'll talk a little bit about that here. But fasting does not just fix metabolism, it actually helps us in several other areas. So when we're talking about fasting, yeah, we're not eating, but that's not all that there is, okay? All right. So how do we prepare for the fast? How do we prepare for the fast? We prepare for the fast by making sure that we understand that there are some very simple things that we can do, that we should do as we're going through the fasting process. Okay? So fasting, how do we prepare? If we do our fast well, then we will have success down the road. How we prepare the fast ultimately helps and dictates how successful the fast is going to be and the benefits that we get down the road. And so when we talk about fasting, we talk about preparing physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, socially. There are lots of different things that we can do, but the three that I tend to want to emphasize are the three that cause the biggest challenges for people. That is how we prepare physically, mentally, and emotionally. As I said, fasting is not just not eating. So there are some physical things that we want to do. We want to make sure that we are resting. If we rest well, coming into the fast, when we feel those dips that will happen as the body's transitioning from burning glycogen, burning sugar, to burning ketones as energy, then we don't feel it as profoundly. But if we're not rested, then when that dip happens, we think that there's something going on that is abnormal, but it's not abnormal. It is a normal dip, but because we're tired, then we run into issues. Okay, so making sure that we're rested, making sure that we are hydrated. If we're not hydrated, the body will have to increase our heart rate to get the same amount of energy to the cells, right? Because if you have less carrying capacity, because remember, energy comes through our body when it goes through the blood. So if our blood volume is lower, my finger doesn't know that. So the body still has to get the same amount of energy to that finger, and to my toe, and to my brain, and to my heart, and to my liver. So all the body still wants the same amount of energy, the same amount of oxygen. So how do I get the same amount to those organs while the ability to carry it has decreased, right? Because now I have less blood. Well, if I'm going to do that, I just make the blood go faster. Yeah. So it's kind of like, you're moving, right, to a different house. And you're supposed to have 10 people who are coming to help you, and those 10, they're taking pieces one at a time. Well, if you have a deadline, you got to get there by a certain time. Well, how do you make that happen? Well, you tell those 5 people who showed up, hey, you got to work twice as fast. Same idea. And so we feel that as palpitation, feel like the heart's racing, skipping a beat. We can feel lightheaded because the volume is lower, so we're not getting as much energy to our brain, and thus oxygen to the brain. All those things happen because we are dehydrated. Okay? So make sure that you're paying attention to those types of things. Also, make sure that you are not in a stressful environment, that you're not placing yourself. Let me back up. Let me say this a little differently. You should not be going into a fast if you're anticipating significantly stressful environment, unless you've been fasting before and this is old hat for you. But even then, we want to make sure we minimize that, because what happens during stress is that the cortisol levels will go up. And what does cortisol do? Cortisol finds energy in the body, and energy, right, the currency of energy in the body is glucose. So cortisol will go and find glucose. The blood sugar will rise. When blood sugar goes up, what has to happen? We have to get insulin on board, and the insulin negates the ketones. Insulin decreases ketones. So stressful environments make it difficult for the body to burn ketones, making it difficult for the body to lower the insulin. And when that happens, then we don't get as much weight loss, our appetite is stimulated, and we go down that pathway. Okay, so preparing for the fast, very, very important. So we want to make sure that we're doing those things appropriately, that we're doing those things that will help us be in a position to be successful. All right, so let's go back. Let's take a look at, let's get back here. Here we are. All right, so preparing for the fast, physically, mentally. The way you look at the world, the way you look at fasting has an impact on what happens in fasting. If you're coming into fasting, like white knuckling it, oh my God, I got to get through this, I got to get through this, they told me I got to fast, then that does not, you may get through this one, but your brain's not going to let you fast again, because it's going to remember the tension, it's going to remember the friction, it's going to remember the difficulty that you had the last time. So seeing fasting as a tool and not as punishment, very important. Also, understanding what the benefits are we're getting from fasting, also important, because that helps us get through it. Because there may be some times when stress happens, because you can't prepare for everything, right? So stress is going to happen, the blood sugars are going to go up, the insulin is going to go up, your appetite is going to get stimulated. And if you are not careful, then during that stressful time, we break the fast because we say, oh, fasting doesn't work for me. No, it's not that fasting doesn't work. It's that the environment that you're in pushed a button, and that button pulled you off of the fast. I want you to hear that. I want you to hear that sequence. So people say, well, I can't fast because I get too hungry. Okay, so let's walk through this process together. So hunger, physical hunger, is a need for energy. The body says, hey, you need to get me energy. And usually that's because we don't have energy on board. Make sense? Yeah. Okay. Well, most of us, me included, have stored energy. So if I have stored energy, then I really can't be physically hungry, because all the body has to do is the body has to go break down the stored energy to run the system. And if you think about, if you look at and believe all the statistics and all what everybody says, most of us have about 100,000 calories left, still in the body, stored in the body at any one time. I want you to think about that. The average person uses between 1,500 and 2,500 calories per day. So if I have 100,000 calories stored in my body, I can go a long time before, quote unquote, I'm hungry. So why then do people say, well, I can't fast because I'm hungry? They can't fast because of habits they've gotten into, because of emotions that are driving cortisol. The cortisol is driving sugar, sugar is driving insulin, and insulin makes them hungry. Or we use food as a buffer. It is the thing that we turn to for our, whatever, to pacify, to blunt, to distract. So all those reasons. So it's not a physical hunger, it's something else that's going on in the body, which is why people say they can't fast most often. It's not a physical thing. Okay? All right. So back to this. So mentally, so how we see things, how we relate to life, how we relate to ourselves, how we relate to our family, how we relate to our job, and all the things that we have to do mentally has an impact on the fasting. And then, of course, emotionally. If you allow your emotions to get supercharged. If you allow your emotions to get so high and you don't have a way of managing emotions, you will eat as a result. And eating will break the fast. So it's not a fasting issue, it's an emotional issue. Does that make sense? Yes. So I want to make sure that you understand that there are a lot of things that we can do preparing for the fast that have absolutely nothing to do with food. All of those are things that we do relating to how we think, how we process, right? All of that in the fast. And so preparing for the fast, very, very important. And a lot of that is mindset. The thing that I want to also talk, and we're going to go back to physical for a minute, how we eat prior to the fast has a direct impact on the fast itself. I said earlier that when we eat, if the blood sugars go up, then insulin comes out. Insulin does not allow the body to break down fat. As a matter of fact, insulin is a storage hormone. So when you eat, insulin says, take the food that you ate and put it in the storage. You ate broccoli, let's go store that. You ate cauliflower, let's go store that. You ate salad, let's go store that. Insulin is a storage hormone. And while insulin is up, anything that you eat goes to storage, other than the thing, of course, your body needs right now to run your system. And if your blood sugar is already up, particularly diabetics, if your blood sugar is already up, pre-diabetics, your blood sugar is already up, any of those diseases, then the insulin is continuing to store because you have enough energy to run everything else. In fact, if I take the blood sugar, the sugar that's running around your blood right now, and I distill it down, dry it out, it's about 1 teaspoon. That's 4 to 5 grams of sugar. That's a blood sugar of 99 to 100. When you drink a can of soda, regular can of soda, there are about 7 to 10 teaspoons in that can. If you came to my house and you saw me making some juice, right? And I took a glass and I poured a little water and I took 7 teaspoons of sugar and dropped it in and just stirred it around and handed it to you, you wouldn't drink it because you're like, oh my goodness, that's too much sugar in there. But we do that every time we drink a can of soda, right? So the body has enough energy for functioning. So the things that we're eating, the salad that we're eating, because my blood sugar is already 100, the salad comes in, my body says, I don't need this for energy right now. I got enough. So what am I going to do with the salad? I'm going to store it. Weight goes up. You're being good. You say, I'm going to eat broccoli and carrot sticks, right? That's one of the things people do. It's like, oh, I'm going to eat less. I'm going to eat carrot sticks. I'm making whatever the foods are that you make. And you're eating rice cakes and celery, and you're dipping it into the ranch and whatever. Well, if your blood sugar is already 100 or higher, the body doesn't need that energy right now. So you eat celery, and the celery gets stored. Mm-hmm. And I mean, let's not even talk about if your blood sugar is higher. So coming into the fast, we want to eat things that don't inhibit the body's ability to get into ketosis. When I first started fasting, one of the things I did was I was like, man, I know I'm going to fast, so let me eat up all the stuff I want. So before I get into the fast, and then everything's going to be fine. Well, guess what? I ate all the stuff, blood sugar went up, and so now my body has to process that. It takes it longer to process it because the blood sugar's up, and so now I get into the fast, but because it takes so long to bring the blood sugar down, by the time I'm getting ready to end the fast, the body's still processing the sugar, or is just now finished processing the sugar. So I didn't really get a good fasting process. So all of that has direct impact on what we do or how the body processes the food. And so I want to make sure that we understand that it is not just, hey, I'm not eating. There are things that we do in terms of that process. And so when we look at fasting, one of the things that I always tell people that we want to do is we want to prepare for the fast. We want to get through the fast successfully. But there are a couple of things that I want you to take away, a couple of takeaways for preparing for the fast. Number one, understanding that preparation is key. Two, we prepare mentally. And I list mentally there specifically because it affects all the others. How you feel mentally affects everything else that happens, emotionally, socially, spiritually. All of those things are affected by the mentation. And then we want to make sure that we get good rest. We want to make sure that we eat nutrient-dense meals. That goes back to this idea of the food that we eat prior to the fast. And then one of the things, we want you to get into community, right? Find a place where people are supportive of what you're doing, what you're trying to do. Otherwise, you're doing this by yourself, and doing things by ourselves is not the best way to do it. Okay, and then we're preparing for the fast. Now let's get through the fast successfully. What does that mean? Well, whenever I talk about fasting in 3 different ways. One of the ways I divide it down is by 24-hour periods, because typically that's what I tell people to fast. You should be able to fast for 24-hour period at a time. So we're going to talk about a 24-hour. We'll probably get into the 30-ish hours or thereabouts, so that we can get through that. So how do we prepare for the fast? Understanding, number one, the first part of your fast is actually not necessarily called fasting. It's called the postprandial period. And the postprandial period is the period after you stop eating. This is where you've eaten food, you're no longer eating, and the body is sorting the food into its various places. It's kind of like you go into the grocery store and you come home with your groceries, and what you're doing right now is you're taking those groceries and you're putting them into the places they need to be. Into the refrigerator, into the pantry, into the freezer, in the bathroom, in your closet, wherever you need to put the groceries that you brought in and the stuff you brought from the store. That's what's going on. And that's what the body is doing during this period. It is just simply taking the food, is breaking it down into its components, and is putting it where it needs to go. We haven't gotten to, hey, let me go burn fat yet. We haven't gotten to, let me get some stuff out of the liver yet. We haven't gotten, none of that's happening because the body simply, it has a bunch of stuff and it needs to put it away. That's the first 6 hours, 4 to 6 hours roughly. So when people say, hey, I'm fasting, I say, well, how long have you been fasting? They say, oh, I've been fasting for 4 or 5 hours. Well, guess what? If you ate 4 or 5 hours ago, then the body's still processing that stuff. It's still shuffling it away. It's probably not even using all of it, right? So remember we said that food comes in and the body converts it to energy. So when you eat food, the body has to decide what to do with it. Either I'm storing it for later, or I can use it right now for stuff I need. Well, if your blood sugar is 100, 200, 300, whatever number it is, then guess what? You have enough sugar in your blood for the body to say, everything else, I'm going to store it. So if we're talking about fasting, the 4 to 6 hours, it's the postprandial period. And there's nothing wrong with the postprandial period, but understand that if we're going to get benefit, then we've got to have a little bit more. Okay? All right. So postprandial. And then the next set of hours, 6 to 12 hours, is now called early fasting. So in this, the body has put everything away and now is going back to it and saying, give it to me so I can use it for energy and for the other things I need in the body. It's kind of once going back to our example of going to the grocery store and coming home. You've come home and you've put everything away, and then now you're getting ready to cook. So now you go back to the refrigerator, back to the pantry, back to the cabinet, and you're taking those things out to use them. And so that's what the body's doing here. It's saying, hey, I've put it away, but now I need some to do whatever else. Okay, so insulin levels are starting to decrease because now you're using up some of the glycogen, some of the sugar. The sugar level is probably going down, and insulin is dipping. Now, insulin, if your blood sugar is high, let me make this point, particularly for my diabetics, my pre-diabetics, if your blood sugar is high, then it takes a while for the blood sugar to come down, for the insulin to drop, for it to then go and use the fat stores. So people will say to me, well, I didn't eat for 12 hours. Well, guess what? In 12 hours, if your blood sugar is still high, your body has no reason to go burn fat. And the insulin is still high because the blood sugar is high. So you're hungry, or your appetite is stimulated. I'm not going to say hungry. Right? And so you're eating. Not because fasting is bad and fasting is not working. You're eating because your insulin level is high, and insulin stimulates the appetite. Insulin dysregulates growth, the ghrelin, which is our hunger hormone. It dysregulates satiety hormone, which is leptin. Okay? So this early fasting stage, the glycogenolysis is happening. So we're breaking down glycogen in the liver. Right, so we put it away in the pantry. Now we're going to go get it, and we say, hey, give some of that to me. Energy levels beginning to fluctuate, because remember, sugar, glycogen, it's not a very stable energy source, because it goes up and down depending on the insulin, depending on your stress, depending on your sleep, depending on your pain, right? So all those things will cause blood sugars to fluctuate. So it's not a very stable source. So as the blood sugars are fluctuating, people will feel that. Sometimes they'll say, hey, I feel weak and tired. This is why I say, if you're not well rested, then you can have some trouble here as well. And then transitioning to using fat in 12 to 18 hours, this is the place where we say, okay, now we're getting some good benefits. Now, let me pause here to say, even though the first several hours after eating are not technically considered fasting, those postprandial periods, that doesn't mean that they're not providing benefit. Let me pause because I want you to get this. Even if you can only fast for 4 hours, right? You can only not eat for 4 hours. That's still giving benefit. Because while you're not eating, the blood sugars are still going down. Because the body is putting it away to different places. So just because it's not a 16-8 or it's not a 12-hour fast or it's not a 18-hour fast doesn't mean that there are not benefits. There are still benefits. Anytime you have the ability to go a period of not eating, unless there's some other medical reason, that is providing benefit. Okay? Now, this is a great place for me to talk about my personal fasting practice. People say to me, why do you fast for 72 hours? I fast for 72 hours because I understand the pathway. I understand if I'm fasting, if I'm not eating for 4 hours, I'm really not getting the things I want in my metabolism. And there are dysfunctions in my metabolism that come from being diabetic, that come from poor control, that come from just not paying attention to my diabetes. Right? Throwing my hands up and saying, man, this is not going to work. I've been trying this. I've been doing that. Right? So whatever the reasons were, there are dysfunctions in my body that I am working to correct. And so if I want to do that, then I've got to find the best way to do that. Now, for me, I've chosen to do it in this way, using an extended fast. But that doesn't mean that you have to do an extended fast like I'm doing. So 24 hours is what we say to everyone. You should be able to work your way up to a 24-hour fast once a week. Wherever you start, whether you start at 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, work your way up 24 hours once a week. Because during that time, the metabolic benefits that you get are amazing. You guys have been watching, you've been following me, and I was sharing with someone just this morning that what you are seeing is a I was going to say a day in the life, but it's not a day in the life. It's years in the life to watch my metabolic process. So I fast partially because, hey, there's a metabolism that I need to correct. I fast partially because of you, because I want you to see what's going on in your body over the course of time. That's why we show our blood sugars. That's why we show our ketones. All of that is with the idea that you get to understand better in your body what's happening. Okay, so that's our 12 to 18 hours. And then 18 to 24 hours, ketosis is beginning. It takes about 24 to 36 hours, sometimes starts a little earlier, for the body to deplete the glycogen in the liver. Now, this is an important concept. So think about going to that grocery store we were talking about, and you go to one of those big box stores and you buy a 50-pound bag of rice or 50-pound bag of whatever. And you now bring it home, you put it in the pantry, right? You store it. Well, you don't go back to the store to buy more until that one is done or near done. So similarly, the body is pulling stuff out of the liver. It doesn't go to the stores, the fat cells, the stuff that's in the pantry, until it's used up what's already there. And it takes about 24 to 36 hours for that to happen. And so in this process, our ketosis, our ketones are starting to go up. Glycogen stores are nearing depletion. This leads to increased ketosis or ketones that are forming. And so the body is in the process of using up the stores that are here. And then after that, it gets to go to the fat cells. Okay? Autophagy is beginning. And this is an amazing process. This is the body's cellular cleanup process. This is where we talk about improved inflammation. We talk about improved immunity. We talk about correction of different things that are going on in the body. You know, better skin, better nails, better hair, because the body is sending out its scavengers and it's taking all of those broken, misshapen, unused, damaged, malformed, malfunctioning pieces of the body, and it's sending them off to recycling and saying, hey, take this stuff. I want you to process it and send it back to me as something better. We went to, where were we? We were in Florida on one of our trips, and there's an outlet there. I'm not sure why they have outlets everywhere, but anyway, there's an outlet. And so we went to the outlet. It was a shoe store, and so I went in and I found some tennis shoes, and it says 60% recycled material. They're some of my best shoes, by the way. 60% recycled material. So that's what the body does. It takes all of the damage, all of the stuff that's there, that's not being used, that's damaged, that's broken, that's misshapen, and it sends it off. It processes it, and then it brings it back as better, usable stuff. I want you to think about that. So fasting enhances autophagy. Right? Let's walk through this process. Autophagy is the body's ability to repair and to clean itself up. Well, one of the things that happens in our bodies is that there are cells that are growing abnormally. We pause and let that sink in. Those are called cancer cells. They're misshapen, they're damaged, they don't function like they should. And during the process of autophagy, we just said that the body sends scavengers out and it finds those broken, damaged, misshapen, malfunctioning cells. It takes them out and it sends them away to recycling. So one of the things that happens in fasting, in ketosis, is that when we talk to the folks who treat cancers, they say that people respond better when they're in ketosis. Fasting has been used for that process. We talk about people who have dementia right? Those neurofibrillary tangles, which are the things that are responsible for things like Alzheimer's. Those are damaged, misshapen proteins. So the body goes out and it scavenges those. We said, and the phrase that's being used, being thrown around, is type 3 diabetes, right? So that's the dementia, the Alzheimer's. So if we can correct the blood sugar, the insulin resistance, the hyperinsulinemia, think about what that means for people who have dementia and Alzheimer's disease. People who have neuropathy, misshapen, damaged nerves, proteins, amazing. That's all going on with autophagy, right? So this period here. So lots of important, lots of beneficial things, and we can come and we can talk, like I said, we can talk about ad nauseum about the things that happen in fasting. So then the 24 to 30 hour period, fat adaptation, significantly increase in our ketones, an increase in our or decrease in our gluconeogenesis, right? So the body is now using fat. It's using fat. It's breaking it down. Ketones are there. We start to get mental clarity because the beta-hydroxybutyrate is what we like, right? The brain likes that. Our growth hormone is up, so our muscle mass is being protected. Yeah? Right? We have so many of those other things, brain-derived natriuretic factor, which is like miracle grow for the brain. So all this is happening during the time of our fasting. So we talk about the metabolic benefits, but also there are neuronal, immune, inflammatory, all of those things happen during fasting. That's the beauty of the fast. And guess what, y'all? It's free. You don't have to buy anything. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to, it's free. So when we talk about fasting, we talk about how to prepare for the fast. We talk about how to get through the fast and what's going on in our bodies. And for getting through the fast, the same things that we talked about as we talked about preparing for the fast, we want to make sure that we are hydrated, make sure that we're rested, making sure that we are not doing any, we're not having some undue stress. And once again, you can't get away from all stress, but don't deliberately put yourself in stress and say, I'm fasting now. If it's your wedding day, if you're moving, well, I'm not even going to go through the list because we can go through a list of stuff, right? Those aren't good times for fasting, by the way. Okay? So as we talk about preparing for the fast, we talk about breaking the fast, and then we want to talk, we talk about getting through the fast, and then we want to talk about how we break the fast and what happens during that process. And these are very important things. So how we break the fast is important because if we break the fast in a way that is not structurally sound, we can undo the things that we had happen in the fast itself, right? So breaking the fast. What does that mean? Well, here are some tips that I want you to get. Number one, you want to monitor what's going on in your body, and particularly we want to monitor blood sugars. If you are so inclined, and I recommend it, you should also monitor ketones. These are things in your body that tell you how your body's responding to food, to sleep, to stress, to pain, to whatever it is. We all believe, and we teach in this way, that all foods that are good for you are good for everybody. I'm going to just stop there for a minute because you can already see where I'm going. Just because a food is on a list that said it's healthy, and the word healthy has all kinds of connotations, doesn't mean that it's a good food for you. Why do I say that? If I take 100 people and I give 100 people a salad, and exactly the same salad, we can replicate it. We are guaranteed that it's exactly the same amount of all the ingredients, same amount of everything. And all those 100 people, let's make them non-diabetic, right? So this is not a diabetes issue. If I take all those 100 people, give them exactly the same thing, and hook them all up to a monitor, all of them will have different rises in their blood sugar. If I were able to check their insulin, all of them would have different amounts of insulin that were produced. If I were able to check their blood sugars 2 hours after they ate, all of them would have, I shouldn't say all of them, not all of them can have different blood sugars. Let me say that way. So that doesn't mean that every single person responds in the same way to every single food. Now, your question is, what are the foods that cause dysfunctions in my body? Not in my wife's body, not in my son's body, not in another person's body. What are the things that are affecting me? Here's an interesting thought. We talk about food allergies, but we don't talk much about food sensitivities. So allergies, you eat something and you have a reaction usually right then. Right? All of a sudden your lips are swelling, you're having trouble breathing, you break out in hives, whatever it is. Allergy, boom. You eat it, you see it. An intolerance, however, is something that you eat that has an abnormal process or effect on your body, but it may not be right away. So you ate something today, and 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, you feel something is not right. I'm not having an allergic reaction, so I don't have anything on my skin, or I may. I'm not having a breathing problem, or I may, but I just don't feel well. And you begin thinking, okay, well, what did I eat yesterday and the day before yesterday? Where did I go? What did I touch? Who was around me? Was somebody sick? And you're thinking, what? You're thinking, hey, the last 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, maybe you're thinking the last week, but you're not thinking 3 weeks ago. But 3 weeks ago, you ate something that had an effect on your body that you're now feeling today. And, okay, it got better. I don't know what happened, but, I was feeling bad, and I started feeling good. My energy is back. I'm sleeping. I don't feel ill. Right? Everything's good. And then, here is the thing. Here's the insidious thing. You encountered that thing again because you didn't know that was what was causing the problem. You ate the same food. You went to the same place. Whatever it was, and that's not even on your radar. And you eat it again. And 3 weeks later, guess what? Boom. So unless you're paying attention to that, you don't realize that it was that thing that you ate 3 weeks ago. So monitoring. Not just monitoring, and here we're talking about monitoring blood sugars and ketones and so forth, but you should be monitoring your food, right? If you're working on your metabolism, if you're working on those health issues, you should be thinking, you should be recording, you should be monitoring. And I'm not talking about becoming a scientist, but pay attention to your body. Your body will talk to you. It will tell you things, and sometimes we ignore it. It's like, oh yeah, I was feeling such and such, but it's okay. I'm better now. Okay? So monitoring blood sugars. Portion control. We have gotten so used to eating in a certain way, a certain size. In fact, we were traveling. We were in Paris. And we went to a restaurant. It was a good restaurant. The food was good. But when they brought my plate, y'all, I looked at this plate and I was like, what is this? They had one of those little carrot things. Not even like 3 or 4 carrots. Like one of what do they call it? Carotenes or whatever it was, right? It had one of those, and it had like 3 pieces of wilted spinach, and it had a piece of meat about yay big, a medallion, I think is what it was called, and they had drizzled just a little bit of sauce on top of it. And I thought to myself, wait a minute. This is like a piece of a finger food. Because I'm thinking like how we eat here. When you go to the restaurant, they give you a plate yay big, piled up so much, and we think that that is a portion. Right? So portion sizes. So often it's not that people eat the wrong thing, but we eat too much of the thing. Right? It's not usually that somebody ate a cookie that caused the problem. It's the fact they ate a cookie and then they ate another cookie and then another cookie and then they washed it down with a can of soda. That's where the problem comes in. Right? So portion, watching the portion. Eating slowly. We're talking about breaking the fast now. Eating slowly. Sometimes when we break the fast, we're like, man, I haven't eaten for such a long time. I'm just going to get it all in. We just shovel. Blah, 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 blah. It takes about 20 minutes for the signals to get from your stomach to your brain that you're full. So in that 20 minutes, if you're just shoveling it in, guess what? You never get the signal. And by the time the signal gets there, we've already overeaten. So portion control, well, monitoring, portion control, eating slowly, and then we want to avoid sugary, highly processed foods because what do those do? They cause blood sugar to go up. When blood sugar goes up, insulin goes up. When insulin goes up, then we get hungry. So we break the fast and we start eating everything in sight. And we say, hey, the fasting doesn't work because it makes me too hungry. Well, it didn't work because when we broke the fast, we ate something that caused a spike in the blood sugar, caused the spike in the insulin. The insulin came out. The insulin caused you stimulated your appetite, and now we're eating. And usually, think about it. When you're hungry, you're not looking for broccoli or salad. You're looking for high carb stuff. And so we eat high carb stuff. Blood sugar goes higher, insulin goes higher, boom, 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 boom. Now, if you're sitting out there, you say, well, I don't have to worry about that because I'm not diabetic. My blood sugar doesn't. Same thing happens. How do you think, if you're not diabetic, right? So let's take diabetics out of the picture for a minute. How do you think your body keeps your blood sugar normal after eating a bowl of ice cream or after eating a piece of cake? And after eating whatever it is. All right. So let me pause. Boom, put a pin right there. Boom, put that down for a minute. This is not a ice cream bashing, cake bashing, any kind of food bashing. So this is not to say that those things you shouldn't eat it. But I want you to understand what's going on in your body when you do eat them. Just because you're not diabetic doesn't mean that your body doesn't have to produce insulin to manage the blood sugar that comes from the cookie, cake, ice cream, and candy. It has to do that. That's why your blood sugar stays normal. That's why when you go to the doctor, they say, hey, your A1C is good. Hey, you're not diabetic. Why? Because your body is doing the job inside, and you're not seeing that. But every time the insulin comes out, we said insulin is a storage hormone. And when it comes out and it's storing, even if you're not diabetic, the weight goes up. The appetite gets stimulated. You think you're ravenous and you think you just love chocolate chip cookies. No, you don't just love it. It's that the insulin is there and the insulin says, go eat some chocolate chip cookie because it stimulates the appetite. Okay, so avoid highly processed, high sugary foods because those will cause problems for us. Hydration, make sure you're hydrating. I can't stress that enough. Sometimes we misunderstand what's going on in our body because we think we're hungry. We're actually not hungry, but we are dehydrated. Water, coconut water, unsweetened, of course. Herbal teas, those are good because they calm you and you get the hydration. Proteins. Make sure that when you're breaking the fast, you want to eat proteins. Proteins will keep you full longer. If you break a fast and you put high sugary stuff in, then your appetite is going to go up, so you're going to feel like you're not full. But if you eat proteins, and the next one we're going to talk about is eating fats, when you eat proteins and healthy fats, those help to satiate you. Proteins, when you eat proteins, they produce something called protein YY. That helps to slow the GI tract and helps us understand or think that we're full, so we don't eat as much. When we eat fats, which is the next one, healthy fats, then it helps our body produce something called CCK, cholecystokinin. That helps to slow the GI tract. Also helps us with satiety. So things like avocados, nuts, seeds, all of those give us good, healthy fats. And then, of course, broths, vegetable broth, bone broth. If you're vegetarian, vegan, vegetable broth will be good. You got the nutrients in there. You got the electrolytes in there. Those are amazing, and they help to refresh you. And then here are some considerations. When you're breaking the fast, you want to choose foods that help to maintain your glucose at a stable level. You want to choose foods that are easy on the digestive tract. You want to choose foods that are not highly processed, high sugar. You're looking for foods that have a low glycemic index, and those are glycemic index of 50 or less. Lean proteins, healthy fats, and you want to make sure that you are remaining hydrated. So if we don't do a good job at the end of the fast, then we may end up undoing what we do in the fast, and we don't get all the benefits. Okay? So how do we prepare for the fast? How do we get through the fast? And how do we break the fast? That's it right there. And so me, I am 77 hours, a little over 77 hours into this week's fast. And I have decided, actually, I'm going to continue the fast for a little while longer. Yeah, yesterday I was kind of processing, and we did a 86-hour fast at one time. We did a 106-hour fast at one time. So I'm going to extend this fast another 12 hours beyond the 72. That'll give us 84. Is that, yeah, 84? Yeah, 84 hours. So I'll probably do a show video where I process that and bring it to you. That's the plan. So there is no. Let me back up and say this a little differently. So when you're fasting, have a plan. So the plan is usually 72 hours, and I did not make that decision here at the end of the fast. Right? I processed this before now and made that decision that I was going to do that. And that's the important thing. Whenever you're fasting, you want to end the fast when you're fasting, when you decide you're going to end the fast. Otherwise, what ends up happening, because sometimes we feel good, like, oh man, this is great, I'm going to go into fast. And we do that without preparing for it, without preparing mentally, physically, and emotionally. And during those last hours where we added those hours, we end up having a not so good experience, because we weren't well hydrated, we weren't well rested, something else was going on that we pushed into, and the emotions came through, and the cortisol came out, and so those last hours are not well received, and so we have a bad time in the fast. So this is me making a decision way before the end of the fast that this was something I wanted to do for my metabolism, and so we're going to do that here right now. So we were going to eat something here to end the fast. We're not doing that right now. We're extending the fast, and so we're going to go through that process. So we'll let you know next week as we go through this, what is going on, how that happened. And give me just a second. Let me do one more thing here, and then we'll be right back. All right. And so that's where we are. I know there are a lot of our community members that are out there who are fasting, who have done a 24-hour fast. They fasted with us day 1, fasted us with day 2, maybe fasted with us day 3. I know there are some of you out there who did the entire fast with us, and just kudos to everyone. The reason I say kudos to everyone is because you've made a decision, whatever the decision is, in terms of your metabolism, and you have committed to being in a space where you can right the metabolism. If you've been on the periphery and you're like, well, I'm not sure, this is a great time to jump in. We do this on a weekly basis. We have our fasting check-ins. You get to see what I eat for the first time or the last time when I get into the fast. And usually you get to see what I eat for breaking the fast. We're going to extend that, like I said, into another several hours as we go into tomorrow. And the reason for going through the fast is that it helps with metabolism. We're not just talking diabetics. Diabetes, pre-diabetes, if you're overweight or obese, if you have fatty liver, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, polycystic ovarian syndrome, you are struggling with dementia, you have neuropathy, whatever the dysfunction is, try fasting. It's free. It's accessible. You don't have to buy anything. You don't have to go anywhere. Try it. Try it, see if it works. And everything that we do here is based on our Triple E formula for success. We educate, we empower, and we encourage. We educate with the shows, with the blogs, with the podcasts to help you change your mindset, to help you see things in a different perspective, to help you understand how your body works. We educate. We empower with the tools. Fasting is a tool. The health action plan is a tool. Our heat model is a tool. Our limitless living health action plan, as I mentioned, those are all tools that allow you to put into practice the things that we're learning. Notice the name of the Limitless Living Health Action Plan. That word action is in there deliberately because whatever we do, it does not function without your input. It doesn't function without you taking some action. It's infused with power when you add yourself into it. So we love that you watch. We love that you listen. We love that you share, but I love when you get up and you get involved. And that brings us to encouragement. Because the community that you're a part of, the community that you are helping to build, gets richer with you in it. We want to hear your successes. We want to hear your challenges. We want to hear about what's going on as you are walking down this path and walking through this process and on this journey with us. Your story is the exact answer to somebody else's question. Your story, regardless of how troubled it has been, your story, regardless of how bumpy and rocky and sometime-ish and 2 steps forward and 1 step back it has been, that's the question and that's the answer for somebody else. Come share your story, get involved in the community. There are over 1 billion people around the world, on the planet right now, that have diabetes or pre-diabetes. That does not include the people who have heart disease, have had strokes, people who are obese, metabolic syndrome, polycystic ovarian syndrome, all those things along the spectrum. Those are the people here. And you get to be a voice to say, we can do something different. We don't have to, as a family, continue to see people have heart attacks. Just because daddy had it and grandpa had it and uncle had it and cousin had it, doesn't mean we have to have it. We don't have to continue seeing people go blind because of diabetes and retinopathy. We don't have to keep seeing people go on dialysis or people who have amputations because that's just what our family does. No, it doesn't have to be that way. Remember why we do what we do. We do what we do to keep you alive as long as possible and to keep you as healthy as possible so that you can wrestle with the grandkids, so that you can walk your daughter down the aisle, so that you can see your son get married, so that you can see your family members take their place in society, so that you can spend time with the family, with your significant other after all the years of sacrifice, all the years of working, all the years of savings, you finally want to do something, you get to be healthy to do that. That's why we do what we do. I want that to sink in, because I want this to be a personal choice. I want this to be a personal campaign. I want this to be a personal pathway that you're going through. It's not about what I want. It's not about what your doctor wants. It's not about the number. It's about what you want to do with the rest of your life. Long, healthy life. That's why we do what we do in this space. I'm always excited when I get to hang out with you. Always excited when I get to see you. And I see lots of our community members. Let's hop over and we're going to say hi. Let's see, where was I in that? We stopped with Steve was saying hi. And Steve was saying that his ketones were 1.8. So thank you for putting that in there, Steve. Jennifer, what's up? Jennifer says, woohoo! Congratulations, Steve. Great job, Steve, from Gian. Fasting is free. Gian says 77 hours. Wow. 96-hour fasting. Thank you. Hey, I am excited to be here with you. We'll continue as we go through the rest of the week. We've got our video from the vault coming at 9 p.m. tomorrow, right here on the channel, 9 p.m. Central. On Sunday morning, This Week in Review at 6 a.m. Central. We'll be back again for Dwain Woode MD Live on Monday as we continue this path, building our process and our blueprint series that we're in. Also, join us for Move as we work on our metabolism. Remember, metabolic optimization via exercise. Thank you for being here. Thank you for hanging out with us. Have a great weekend. We'll see you in the community and we'll see you on the show. Let's take a look at that Move promo and then we'll be out. Good night, everybody. Welcome to Move, metabolic optimization via exercise. This isn't just about workouts. It's about moving your body, moving your habits, and moving your life forward. Each episode builds consistency, strength, and resilience step by step. I'm Dr. Dwain Woode, and together we're writing the story of health, transformation, and limitless living. This is Move. Let's get started. Good night, everybody.